Josephine and Edward. And who's that behind you?
That is our cat, Lumi. He's just hanging out with us for tonight. We have 2 other cats. They might join us.
Yo, what's up, Lumi? Mine are here as well. I've got Lucy on the bed and Fred on my feet.
Oh, very nice. They all just want to be part of the show.
There's been lots of cats making appearances tonight in these interviews. I'm here for it. Anyway, we are here to talk about Make-A-Wish. I loved this. It was a real emotional roller coaster. I was like, it really like took me in a lot of different places, because at first I was like, what genre is it? Because I found myself like genuinely frightened, and then the next minute I was like belly laughing, and I just thought how brilliant it was that you can conjure up all those emotions in 8 minutes. It was fantastic. And there was something a little bit about the American Horror Story vibe, which I really dug as well. I really dug that. So I would love to know from you guys, because you both produced and acted.
Correct.
So I'd love for you to tell me a little bit about how this project came to be. So who would like to start? Josephine or Edward? Up to you guys.
Well, this project came to be because I wanted better demo reel footage, and the stuff that I have now was like, isn't that good? Or I guess back then it wasn't that good. And so I had read the script from Ivan Sang, our writer, like a couple years prior. And I was like, hey, that's actually a really awesome script that I would love to use. And then we wanted to shoot it at home, just, on our simple camera and everything. But then once Edward actually reached out, we brought on our producer, Diane Foster. And then she was like, yeah, I can help you guys make this into something nicer. And then Edward reached out to Din Tai, our director, and then it just became this whole other thing. And it was no longer just demo reel footage. We had like a whole team. We were looking for locations and like all these fancy script revisions, because our original one was definitely more of a like a sketch comedy kind of thing. I mean, there was still some murder involved, but it wasn't so as dark, I guess, as it got now.
Yeah.
So it definitely became a whole different thing.
I love it. You basically made a film by accident.
Yes.
Yep.
Sorry, speaking of location, I'm curious to know where that was. I thought it was the perfect location for this film. Like, where did you guys shoot?
That location was from our directors. He had a friend who at the time like owned this house.
Yeah.
And so it was like her, and then in that house it was her and like 3 or 4 other roommates that lived in that house. Yeah. And so when Din was reaching out to like any possible location, this person offered her place as a possible place. And so when we looked at the photos and just like the bookshelves and how everything was decorated, Din was totally in love with it. And when he presented to us, what do you guys think about this? And we were like, yeah.
It's great.
It was like this. It was a very hipster, very, very beautiful, decorated kind of place. And we thought that would be quite a lovely location for where all the action would take place.
Yeah, it was perfect. It was perfect. And so I already said that you guys produced and acted, and I love how the film evolved or was born. During the process, did you find yourself sort of crossing over into other departments as well? Because often when we're making films like this, it's like all hands on deck. And for some people, they like to very much stick to their job descriptions. But for you guys, did you find yourself sort of branching out into other departments?
Oh, most definitely. This is our first project that we've worked on together and as producers. So we were like, are we going to kill ourselves, each other doing this? Yeah, and see, like, will we be able to mesh well together as like real life partners and working partners now? And then thankfully it all worked out. Definitely in the beginning, we had Diane, because she's had tons of experience producing a lot of different projects. She helped walk us through everything. And then the day of the shoot, she was like, you guys are just the actors. Do not worry about anything going on behind the scenes, because we need you guys to focus. So she took care of everything for the shoot date. And then afterwards, for post-production, we got very hands-on with everything. And we have learned so much about post-production in terms of like just finding people was like the biggest thing, because we really wanted to be really inclusive with diversity and women of global majority, like people of global majority, like so that we can really expand that, because a lot of people that I feel like it's just really hard to find that, and I feel like I'm just jabbering.
Yeah, it's I think what she's trying to say
out here, Edward.
It's hard to find that, because like more often when you put in a job description and you put it out there, that it's very easy to find very, very qualified and amazing talented Caucasian men, but then to find just Caucasian women and then finding women of color, you really had to branch out and specify, because that becomes hard. But it doesn't mean it's impossible. It just means you just have to seek out those communities, that representation, and then find that. And so, and more often than not, we notice that the qualification or the experience might have been limited, because more often than not, they don't get that experience. So, one of our examples, and this is where it could be a huge coincidence if our short film helped her in her career, but our sound mixer and designer, Venus Leone, when we reached out to her, she has never worked on any like narrative short film or feature film like sound mixing. And so when we presented it, we were recommended to her by a mutual friend. And so she jumped on board because she loved what we had. And then after she did it was like a year or two afterwards. Now she's sound mixer and designer for Dear White People, and she's doing Netflix TV shows.
It was all because of that.
I mean, I don't know if it was because of us, but it was great that we were her first. And then she might have been able to use that as a sample of like, this is what I was able to do, and then go from there. So I think this is something that would encourage us that in the future, when we produce more content, that we continue to look for representation in all those realms.
I love that, and sort of crosses over into one of my later questions, because one of my favorite things about watching these films at first glance this year is that there's a huge Asian presence, relatively speaking, behind the camera and in front of the camera this year, which I love. And I'm curious to know, like, moving forward, as two Asian creatives yourself, what is your hope? How do you see the industry changing, and what is your hope for it? Josephine.
Do you want to take this?
I hope that when we see projects, it's not going to be like right now when we watch things, when we're whether it be like we see the on-screen stuff or behind the scenes stuff, whenever we see like an Asian face or anyone who's not white, we're just like, oh, look, there's the token Asian, there's the token Black person. Oh my gosh, a Native American person not playing like a Native, like I am an Indian that's getting my home destroyed, like, you know, that kind of the stereotypes.
Stereotypes.
Yeah, exactly. And then same with seeing like behind the screens, like when we'll be like, oh, okay, like there's an Asian name right there. Okay, there's a name. It's like we actually will like look for them, but then we can find them because they're easy to see and spot, versus it just being part of the daily norm kind of thing. We want it to be a part where we're just like, we don't even think about it. We're just like, yeah, of course why would there not be people of color inside this production, behind the scenes and in front? Yeah.
I think for me, like, I want to be to a point where, especially when it comes to any minority, whether it be like ethnic minority or the LGBTQ minority, that there's always like a pressure that whatever they make has to be amazing, has to represent the community in such an amazing light. It's a masterpiece. And there's such an enormous pressure that where I see success, or where I see where we are truly moving the needle forward, is that there's so much what I call mediocre representation. So many like either terrible or bad or mediocre ones, that it has become the norm, so that just because you happen to make a not so good one, that all of a sudden you're like, oh no, I'm making my community look bad because I made an inferior product. Because like when we look at like mainstream products, whether it's like made, written or directed by white men, they can make anything. They can make like the most silliest, dumbest thing, and it makes a lot of money, and no one will ever judge them for it. But if a white woman, like even then, if she makes a mediocre thing that bombed, her career will just like plummet. While a white man could just benefit from just making a crappy product and just keep going. So we want to see more of that, where we see, yes, we will see like great, like for Asian American representation. Like I like seeing movies like Minari or those kind of things where like, great, those are masterpiece, those are excellent. And then we have other films or TV shows that are like, those are kind of silly, but it's good to have that. It's
yeah,
good.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for that perspective. Thank you. And so, being new to producing and post production, did you guys had a hand in editing as well?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh yeah, we were definitely there. I mean, like, if anything, for our team, I was like, so once we finished the film, Diane had other projects to do, so it was mostly left to us. So I definitely was more on terms of like reaching out to the people in terms of who we needed, and Josie was excellent in terms of the meticulous details of like what needed to be fine-tuned. And so when it came to the editing process, it was just like going through which cuts that needs to be chosen and whatnot. So Josephine was excellent in that. And in terms of like, even when it came to like the sound design aspect and like the composer choosing the music, that definitely went more towards us, and especially for her, which after seeing how she did it for someone who has never done any producing work, I was like, this is what a producer does. They are very meticulous, they're very detailed, which can often, like, she was concerned like that when is it too much for a producer? I'm like, no, a producer needs to do that. And yes, there can be difficulties, like if it's a woman producer, would other like people in the crew, if it's like a man, would they see that as like, she's a woman, she's bossing me around? And there might have been some like creative like difficulties, but in the end it did smooth itself out in terms of that, which I think does show that there needs to be more women producers, there needs to be more women directors, because it's just, I think for a lot of men, they're not used to that.
Then you're not being used to being told what to do by a woman.
Yeah, especially like if it's a woman producer and they don't have the credits per se. But I think it is important to have that.
Yeah. I mean, I think we forget as actors, the one thing, maybe the only thing that we can do is tell stories. And that's so valuable when you go into post-production. Did you feel that that helped you when you were offset and you were making this movie in the edit suite? Did it help you having come from being actors? What do you think? Or was it difficult to sort of step out of your acting role and create a movie from a different perspective?
Well, we're pretty critical in terms of the stuff that we do see these days. So I feel like it was fine. If anything, now we're just even harsher critics of our own acting ability and going like, oh, like we should have done that a different way, but now it's too late and now we're stuck with this. Yikes.
Yeah.
But in terms of that, like I feel like we did pretty good for our first time, in the sense that like our short was a lot longer, obviously, before, but then we're watching it and we're like, this worked so well in the script, but watching it, this is like pretty cringy. We need to cut these bits. Oh my God, so much stuff, get rid of that. And then so like we cut off a lot of stuff, that we trimmed a lot of fat that we think helped. But I guess it's just a question of how do we keep, like, because it wasn't our script that we did. So in the future, if we were to like write our own script, how do we deal with that? Seeing, like, having it on paper, then seeing it on screen. Would we be too precious with our stuff?
Well, that's kind of what I was interested to know. It's like, are you able to sort of step back from that and make those tough decisions?
I would like to say that yes, we
sounds like you did.
Yeah, because it's already like doing this project anyway was like very. We don't want to be precious with it, because it's just one of many projects. And if everything becomes your just little baby and you cherish it, you're like, nothing will ever get done. So it's like, it's okay if we make our mistakes now, when we do whatever we want with this, because we have other stuff we want to do with that. And then we just keep learning and working from there.
Yeah, amazing. It sounds like you learned a hell of a lot from this project. And so moving forward, what next for you guys? What do you guys got up your sleeves?
Right now, I think in terms of actors, because this film was very successful in terms of like getting out there in terms of the genre horror film festival circuit. And so we met a ton of amazing filmmakers along the way. So we collaborated with a few of them along the way in terms of like for her acting and for me acting. So there are projects that we are like, we play a role in those upcoming horror short films and features. And then we have another one that's coming in next month. That was contacted by another horror filmmaker, but ironically enough, she's making like a romantic comedy, has nothing to do with horror, which is a very pleasant thing, because for Josephine, she is not a fan of the horror genre. She does love terrifying me though in real life and on a daily basis, but in terms of watching it, she's not much of a fan. So
yeah, we never intended this to be a horror either. It was more of a dark comedy to us, but then it seems like the genre of film festivals were like, hey, we actually like this as a horror, and so we're like, oh, okay, let's go with it and see where we go. And then it seems to be doing pretty well.
I mean, I guess it straddles both, really.
Yeah, but then like
it's great.
Some of the horror, it was like, oh, it's so scary because now we're like all of the films that we have watched that go with it are all just terrifying.
They're like pure horror,
supernatural, like complete gore, all that. And I'm just sitting there, my butthole is like, and I'm like, and everything's terrible. But it's also great because it's good to see these things, but I'm also just like so scared watching
it.
And in
terms of writing and producing, like there's like one that I just finished that we're looking to finding directors and like getting that forward. And also that one, I want to take more of a backseat in terms of just writing and producing, and then also having Josephine be
more real footage,
but like having roles that like I think what we're trying to tackle unexpectedly are the roles that we don't usually find Asian American actors playing, and so the type of character that she is going to play is something that we normally don't find either, not just Asian American women, but just women in general. Like we always associate women that they always have to have some sort of perspective or portrayal, but it's like we never, like when, for example, the man child, that's never been done with like a woman in terms of like being like the grungy, just like everything, I'm just playing my video games, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
a man is portrayed at that.
Yeah.
And that's something that, you know, those are the kind of things I'm interested in looking into.
Yeah, awesome. And there's actually, it's probably good to mention, or I found that with film festivals and doing the film festival circuits, like what a great community it is of people. I don't know if you found that, but I know in the past that I've unintentionally made great connections where I've been able to go forward and create with the people that I meet on the film festival. So I thought maybe worth mentioning because we're doing an interview for a film festival. But it sounds like you guys also had that experience too.
Oh yeah, most definitely. We've had a really great supporting community come out, and we just never thought that we'd be in this community. Definitely it's all like Edward here because he loves networking and socializing. And so he's been having a field day, just reaching out, doing all. So that aspect of the post-production in terms of just finding people, like seeing where we can go with it in terms of all the film festivals and everything. That was all him. He's just all day, like night to day, just in front of the computer.
We need people like Edward. That's not my forte either, but it's so important.
Exactly. So I do not do any of that because I'm just like, oh my God, humans. I don't want to talk to them. I got this. Oh my God, yes.
And because this was all during the pandemic, it was all very online, like interactions, that kind of thing. And imagine that, you know, slowly but surely, now that with FirstGlance Film Festival, they're going to have a live screening at the Lamel, which we've never had like a theater experience. We've had like drive-through experiences, and we're like, cool, and people honking their cars or flashing their lights to show that they're applauding. But to be in a theater, it feels so like I can't even like imagine that yet. But the fact that it's going to happen in like 2 weeks from now is crazy.
I know, it's exciting times. And one last question for you guys: have you got the bug? Have you been bitten by the bug? Are you now like fired up to go on and make more movies? I mean, I'm guessing yes from what you've said, but it seems like for two actors that wanted to initially create something for the reel, it's like snowballed into a potential sort of not change in direction, but expansion of.
Definitely. I would say yes. We have like, I think with any artist person, they just have so many ideas, but it's just a question of like, what is going to stick? What do we actually carry forth versus just talking all this, you know, we just talk all this air and whatever. And then eventually it's like, oh, we forget all of them. So it is good. He did write a script recently and that was good. We're actually like making progress. But as for like us really knowing where we're going to go with it, we're just trying to survive the whole COVID thing.
Oh yeah, because it's like
we
do realize like for a lot of filmmakers, the pandemic was difficult because like if we were to make film, we had to be very careful and with the safety procedure for it. And when I looked into it, I was like, if you were to do it properly, COVID safety enforcement and the procedures and all that is very, very expensive.
It's a lot.
So that's why we're like, we're not going to rush this. Like, we want to do it safely, but also cost effectively. So it's kind of like there was no rush. And so right now we saw that the LA, they're extending it till June 30th in terms of the COVID enforcement. So if we are going to shoot anything, we're looking at like after that, if we get better, like if things truly do get better.
One day at a time. I love that you guys are so enthusiastic about making more, though, because some people have their first experience and go, hell, never again. Hell no, never again. So the fact that you guys are like, yeah, let's go is great. So I can't wait to see what you guys do next. And who knows, maybe we'll see you again next year on the actual red carpet.
Yes.
First Glance.
So.
Yeah.
Josephine and Edward, thank you so much for joining me tonight. It was great to talk to you. I love talking to you. And I know First Glance are really excited to have your movie here this year. So thank you so much. And also thank you to It's a Short for making this interview possible. Have a great night, guys. And good luck with the movie.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
No worries. Take care. Bye.
Bye.